Hey everyone, it's Nick from Talking Cardboard, and today we have special guest from Dr. Wicks. Is that I'm pronouncing that right?
Yeah,
Wicks?
Dr. Witz. That's
Witz.
right.
And it's Austin specifically from Dr. Wicks, and Cory also is joining us today from Talking Cardboard. Cory is in the middle of moving, so he doesn't have a video camera today, but he is here, and you will hear his voice.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. So Austin, if you don't mind giving a brief introduction of yourself and your company and what it is you're doing in the gaming world, and then we can, learn more about the game that we're planning to play today.
Yeah, let's talk about this. So my name is Austin Smokowicz. I'm one half of the design team of Dr. Witz. My co-designer, Aaron Hansowitz, who can't be with us today, is together. So I'm Austin Smokowicz. He's Aaron Hansowitz. Together, we're Dr. Witz. We're a board game design duo. And today what we're going to be showing off is Robotech Reconstruction, which is published by Strange Machine Games. Yeah, Aaron and I have been designing board games since about 2011. And this design started up in we started designing this game back in 2018. And we're happy to say that, it is at the printers. At some point soon, it will get onto a ship. Who knows when, because of all the shipping issues, but we look to have this. We look to have physical copies here for this game by the end of the year.
Being a Robotech game, are you able to give like a very high level summary of Robotech for those like myself that maybe aren't so familiar with that IP?
Right, so there's many layers of weeds we can get into, but at a very high level, Robotech is a Japanese anime from the 1980s that came to that when they localized it for the United States, they said one season is not enough, and they ended up getting two other different series together and made it into one thing that we call Robotech. Over in Japan, it is still called Super Defense Force Macross, which refers to the giant ship, the SDF-1, which is the thing that's prominently displayed on the rule book, which is prominently displayed on the cover. It is a giant piece of equipment, and basically it's a mecha anime of humans versus the aliens and Zentratis. And while the humans are in giant mecha, the aliens are 7-story tall aliens, so they're just in bodysuits, effectively. They're in robotic bodysuits. It's the cool thing about it is that it still has a fandom because the thing still really holds up well today as far as an action, anime, and storytelling perspective. This game, if I may just roll right into it.
Yep.
This game, Robotech Reconstruction, takes place in a very specific period of the reconstruction of the Robotech timeline. We are in the very far, far future of 2013, 2 years after the end of the first Robotech War, which is humans versus Zentradi aliens. The Zentradi aliens attempted to wipe out all of humanity, but they only got 90% of us, so we're going to count that as a win. But, yes, but not every Zentradi died in the last war. In fact, when you look at this game board, you'll see that there's a lot of these cucumber-shaped things coming out of the earth. Those are actually crashed Zentradi ships that fell that fell and crashed to Earth and still survived. They ended up being big places of technology, and they became the new centers of where the population was able to regrow. But when we look at this game, there are 4 unique factions, 4 asymmetrical factions that are now fighting for control of this Earth. Right, we're now 2 years out from that war, and things have more or less settled down. And we step in here as things are now becoming explosive again. The first faction I want to talk about is the Robotech Defense Force, the RDF. They are the stars of the show. They're the characters that you follow. And here, they're dealing with a very specific problem. They're dealing with the fact that there's a whole bunch of Zentradi civilians who, these are aliens that after the war have now transitioned to a civilian life, and they were genetically engineered and bred for war, so civilian life is very weird for them, and many of them, after 2 years of not doing warfare stuff, are getting restless and are getting discontent and are trying to like leave back out, go back out into the wilderness, start militias and stir up fights, and the RDF really doesn't want that to happen. So if you play as the RDF, your faction needs to have at least 5 or more content Zentradi civilians across this game board. We'll talk about what that looks like in a minute, but that's how you win, by keeping the hearts and minds of these civilians out. Because the last thing they want is a rebellion, which brings us to our second faction, the Zentradi Rebellion. Now, this is led by Commander Chiron, who was a mid-ranking military soldier of the Zentradis, and now that the war is over, he survived the war, and he's been hiding out for the last 2 years. And his spies are telling him that there is discontent amongst the Zentradi civilian population, and so he thinks now's the time to rise back up, get those civilians back into his forces, and finish the job that they started 2 years ago by ending humanity. And if you play as the Zentradi Rebellion, your goal is to acquire 11 of these civilians, get them out of the civilian life, get them back into uniform, get them into your military. And at any time, if you can get those 11 civilians, you will win the game. But now we talk about our third faction, which is the Anti-Unification League. This is a group of Zentradi and human civilians that have been living underneath the RDF military rule for the last 2 years, because the planet was more or less destroyed, and the RDF was the only place of like functioning technology on this ruined planet. So like the RDF, got the water cycle working again, got the nitrogen cycle working again, started to really heal the planet. And all this time, the actual civilian population has been underneath their strict control. And now they are looking for independence. So the Anti-Unification League, if you play as them, your goal is to control 5 or more cities across the board. And because you need a big enough base in order to let your independence movement gain hold and actually survive, as opposed to just being crushed again underneath the weight of the RDF. And finally, our fourth faction is the REF, the Robotech Expeditionary Force. Now, not all Zentradi fought against the humans in the war. In fact, this faction is led by Commander Britai, who defected right before the final battle and joined the humans and joined to defend Earth with the humans. And so Commander Britai is flying around on his flagship up and around the Earth, and what Britai knows is that there are other threats out in space. There's more Zentradi. There's these guys called the Robotech Masters. There's even worse threats that show up in later seasons that we won't even need to talk about here. And he knows that the only way for Earth to survive these threats is if they stay united underneath the Robotech Defense Force. So if you play as the REF, which, because there's only 3 of us, the REF will be played by a bot, so you'll get to see how that works.
Cool.
But what the REF is trying to do is try to have 7 territories under the control of the RDF. Because in this game there is a quasi-alliance system, right? The base of this game is an area control game. So the forces of the RDF and the REF combined to count for territorial control. Mm-hmm. Just like meanwhile, units from the Zentradi Rebellion and the AUL also combined for territorial control.
Okay.
So that's an overview of the 4 factions. So what would you guys like to play as?
Well,
good question.
The RDF sound kind of cool, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Do
you
you
can
have
go for the
Okay,
RDF.
I'll do RDF just because that sounds fun.
Yeah. I
Let's
think I would like to try to acquire humans, so I'll be the ZR.
Okay.
You mean your erstwhile Zentradi forces that
Yeah, right. Get them back in line.
Yeah.
bring them back to heel.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that looks interesting.
No, they're mine. Yeah, so would you say this is kind of a 2v2 game in a way then, if you have 4 players?
No,
Okay.
it's 4 players, but you have a quasi ally, a full enemy, and a quasi enemy.
Okay.
But ultimately, there is only one winner. Each player has their own unique goal.
Okay.
And the tricky thing about working with or potentially working with other players is that you could potentially give too much away on your you can actually, if you're not careful, you might end up giving your opponent the win,
Yeah.
your ally the win,
Your ally
because
the
you're
win,
just
yeah.
like, yeah.
Got it. Okay,
Okay.
cool. That's fun.
What happened here? Okay, where'd the other cards go? Nah, there they are. Anyway, just gotta, there's some cards hiding in the bottom. Okay. Weird. Okay. That was a weird. I guess I must have shuffled them and not. Anyway. Okay. So now that you've picked your factions, I will take. So I will take the AUL. All right. So the way that this game works is that, again, at the base of it is the concept of area control. So let's just talk about how that works. If you come over here to New Portland City, what you'll find is there we have a control marker in the middle, and it is currently controlled by the AUL. Each of the territories on this board can either be controlled by the AUL or the REF, or it could be uncontrolled, right? So this territory is controlled by the AUL because in this game, each unit counts as one towards territorial control. So the REF has the RDF has 2 military mecha here. The AUL has 2 partisans, and the Zentradi Rebellion has 1 force. So what you have is 3-2, and thus the territory is controlled by the AUL. Meanwhile, over here in Monument City, you'll see that there are 2 RDF partisan, 2 RDF military mecha, and 2 AUL partisans. So it's 2-2 in this territory, and thus there is no control marker. You can see how, and each faction also has a standee, a hero character, or in the case of the Zentradi Rebellion, a villain character. And each of those also count as 1 towards territorial control, which is why New Macross City is controlled by the RDF because of Rick Hunter here, and why the Northwest Quadrant is underneath the control of the RDF because the REF flagship is sitting in that territory. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you look at this board, you'll see that it's divided into 13 spaces. There are 10 territories and 3 zones. The zones we'll talk about later, but they function a little differently. And they don't even really matter so much as the token within it. That's our protoculture token. But so of the 10 remaining territories, we have 5 city territories: New Portland, New Macross, Monument City, New Detroit City, and Granite City. Each of these territories have a rounded border to denote the fact that they are a city, and they are called a city. The other 5 are what we call land territories. We have the Wastelands, the Northwest Quadrant, the Forest Preserve, Excalibur Command Center, and the Reclamation Sector. Now, each of these territories also has within them a contentment track. So if we come over here to the Excalibur Command Center, you'll see that they have a contentment track. Each contentment track has within them a certain number of Zentradi civilians, and where they are in this track tells you how content or discontent they are. For every Zentradi civilian all the way on the left-hand side of the track, that means that that civilian is content, and that is 1 point towards victory for the RDF. Meanwhile, Zentradi civilians can get upset, angry, and then get so angry that if they were to move to this Zentradi symbol on the board, the piece will actually come off the board, and instead, one Zentradi soldier will be added to the Zentradi Rebellion's hideout. As you see, the Zentradi Rebellion has a hideout on their player mat, and that is a safe space for all of their units, in the game. So again, if the Zentradi Rebellion is able to get 11 civilians off the board, they automatically win. Mm-hmm. Whereas with all the other factions, they need to meet their victory condition and have that remain so by the end of the round in order to be considered victorious. All right, so let's talk about how you take a turn. Turns are very simple, and they have 4 parts to them. The first thing you get to do is potentially trade a card. Then you will play a card. Then you will take command, and finally you will draw another card. So while the base of this game is area control, the heart of the game is in the event deck. So at the beginning of the game, each player is going to get 4 cards from this deck. And the first thing you're able to do on your turn is potentially trade a card with another player. It's optional to do so, but you have the ability to make trades. This is a game where we highly encourage table talk, highly encourage plan making, highly encourage deal making. The only thing to understand is that this game is not any deals you make at the table. Like, first of all, there's no private conversations. So everything that's said still has to be said at the table. And any deals that you make are not binding. And the reason for that is not because this is a game of backstabbery, but it's the game itself is highly situational and highly tactical. So there are many times where you'll make a deal, say at the beginning of the round, and then by the end of the round, say I gave you a card, you gave me a card, I say, oh, you play this now and I'll play whatever you give me later. You might get to the end of the round and you'll say, oh, don't play that card anymore. It doesn't make any sense. Don't do it. Save it for next round. Right? So when you do card trades, you can only make one trade. It's a 1-for-1. It's a 1-for-1 card swap. You don't have to play the card that you just got. And in fact, one of the things to understand about this game is that there's only 32 cards in the game. And if you play all 4 rounds, because the game only goes 4 rounds, if you play all 4 rounds, only half of the cards are ever played. So it's just as viable to get a card to make sure that it never gets played as it is to get a card to make sure that you play it, right? Somebody can use the card trade as much of a threat as a negotiating tactic of like, ooh, let's do a deal. It's more like, I have this thing, you don't want me to play it. Do you have anything good to give me in return? Okay. Right. And once you get your hands, it's up to you if you want to reveal them. Have other players sneak peeks at them. You as the owner of the cards get to decide how that flows out. Then the next thing that happens is you're going to play a card. When you play a card, what we have here is a turn track, just keeping track of who has gone and who will go within the round. At the very first turn, the RDF always goes first. They always get the first turn. So when the RDF gets to play a card, they're going to take a card from their hand and they're going to place it. In the slot underneath their token. And these cards each have a couple of components to it. First, in the upper left-hand corner, each card has a faction symbol that represents the owner of that card, or essentially the event is associated with that faction. There is an equal number of event cards for each faction scattered throughout this deck. And this just tells you who gets to take the action when it's played. The second thing is on the right-hand side, we have what's called the reaction column. This tells you who's going to go next in the round. So because the RDF plays Permaculture Heist, this is just telling you that the AUL will go next in the round. And we put their token here to show that that's what's happening. In this game, what that means is that the player who goes first in the round gets to decide who goes second, and the player who goes second gets to decide who goes third and fourth to end the round. Then, the very bottom of the card, we have a white box action and a black box action. The white box action is the event of that card, and when it is played, whenever it is played, the faction who owns the card gets to carry out that event. So in this card specifically, like it says, select one space with Zentradi units and move 2 Protoculture tokens to that space. Well, that one space is decided upon not by the RDF who played the card, but by the Zentradi Rebellion whose faction card it is. So the RDF can play it and then try to maybe persuade them to send those tokens somewhere else, but the RDF does not have control over it, the owner of the card does. And then the black box action is an optional action that, again, the card holder gets to take if they want to. But these actions at the bottom of the card are always limited in scope and, again, optional. The third part, so that would finish the event card. The third part of the round of a player's turn is taking command. And when you take command, that is when you are going to take 1 or 2 actions off of your faction board. So you can see, if you look at your faction board, you'll see that there are a variety of actions on them that will be up for you to take. And I say that you will take 1 or 2 actions because that highly depends on what card you played. So if say the RDF, instead of playing Protoculture Heist, ends up playing Robotech Production. So we play this, they played their own card, we look at the reaction column, the RDF will go next. Then the RDF takes the action in the white box, and because it's their own card, they will actually ignore the action in the black box. Instead, when they take command, they will get to take 1 normal action from their board. So if you play your own card, you take the event and you take 1 normal action off of your board. However, if in the original example they played Protoculture Heist, not only does the Zentradi Rebellion get to take the white box action and optionally take the black box action, but now when the REF takes command, they will now take 2 actions off their board, and they have just 2 different actions off their board, and they have just unlocked their special actions. In this way, the game highly encourages you to play other faction event cards on your turn so that you can take more and unlock better actions off of your event board, off of your faction board.
Yeah.
Right? And then once you finish taking command, you will draw a card into your hand, drawing back up to 4 cards, and that signifies the end of your turn, and the next player in the turn order will get to start their trading. Will get to be able to start trading their turn. We go through this until every player has taken a turn, and you'll have something like this, and that will end the round. And when the round ends, we head up over here to our resolution bar, and we go through a number of steps just to end the round, clean it up. And the way to think about this is that, there's a bunch of steps, but actually what it is extra actions that your faction gets to take for free at the end of the round. Like, everyone gets to take income. Zentradi and the RDF get to take their influence action again. The AUL and the REF get to recruit again. cards come out, some special cards come out at the end of each. So up here at the end of each round, new cards come in, special cards come into players' hands. So we have cards that come in at the round 1, round 2, round 3. Each, all three factions, 3 of the 4 factions will each get 1 special card, whereas the Zentradi Rebellion will get 1 card each round that gets more and more powerful as the game goes on. All right, so let's talk about actions. So the thing to understand about actions is that while there are a number of actions, every player has essentially the same set of actions, but they're all prioritized differently. They all have different efficiencies for each faction. And one way to think about it is that the Zentradi factions, the REF and the Zentradi Rebellion, they sort of kind of do things the same way, whereas the Anti-Unification League and the RDF, as the slightly more human factions, they sort of kind of do things in the same way. So once you learn how one faction works, you kind of learn how a second faction works, and it's really easy. Once you get through the first hurdle of, it's an asymmetric game and every faction does things a little differently, but once you get through the hurdle of learning one, it's really easy to pick up the other 3 as you go through it. Some things to understand that's like general for everybody when it comes to dealing with actions is that actions have costs, and that cost is in protoculture. In this world, in this sci-fi universe, protoculture it's been described to me as space oil. It's the thing that makes stuff go in this world. And we have a protoculture board that keeps track of how much protoculture each faction has. Each faction starts with a different amount. The AUL, I start with 5. The REF is going to start with 10. Zentradi Rebellion has 15, and the RDF starts with 30. And while you take actions, one of your major constraints on your actions is, again, how many you get to take in a turn, how many different actions you get to take in a turn, and how much protoculture you have to spend on those actions. Because as you take actions, you'll be spending protoculture. Not all actions all the time, but most of them. So let's go through how this works. The other thing to note is that the faction boards also have this little double arrow symbol here. And this double arrow means that an action is repeatable. And so when we say that you get to take 2 different actions off of your board, that means what you're going to do is you are going to select one action, and then if it's repeatable, you can keep doing that action as many times as you want before you move on to a second different action off of your board. But once you move to the second action, you can't go back to the first. There's a little bit. So it's not unlimited, but within that, it is. So let's start with the Zentradi Rebellion, right? If you say, I take the move action, it's repeatable, which means that you get to move and move and move and move and move and move. And what your move action is, and this is true for the REF and the Zentradi Rebellion, is that when you move, you are moving 1 unit, 1 space, 1 adjacent space. So up on the board, when you look at your covert unit here, if you're going to say it costs you 1 protoculture to move it to 1 adjacent space, and that means it can move to New Portland City, the Fabrication Zone, Northwest Quadrant, or Granite City for the cost of 1 protoculture. And then, because the action is repeatable, once you move it, you can now move it again. Units themselves do not exhaust. You can move them all across the board. You can send them anywhere you want as long as you have the protoculture to pay for them. Another thing that the Zentradi Rebellion gets to do is when they move, they can move to the hideout. So the Zentradi Rebellion's hideout, which, by the way, in the show is a base that moved around a couple times. They went to Antarctica. They went to the Amazon rainforest. The good guys could never find them, but here that's represented by a hideout space. And when you move, you are able to move from your hideout to any space on the board. So it's like an instant warp to any place on the board from your hideout. And that also works in reverse. So even though it doesn't happen very often because you're going to be pushing troops out more so than sending them back, if you had your unit in the wasteland and you wanted to get them to Monument City, normally that would cost you 1, 2, 3 protoculture to move them 3 spaces. Instead, you can warp them through your hideout and it will only cost you 2.
Nope.
Yeah. But again, probably not a thing you're going to do. More likely you're just going to be sending them out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they do. Meanwhile, for the RDF, their movement works differently, and this is the same for the AUL. When you move, you are going to, instead of selecting a singular unit, the RDF is going to select a territory, and then you have the option of moving every unit in that territory. So when you select the move action, and the first thing you do is say, okay, well, I'm going to select Excalibur Command Center. You've now freed up all 3 of these units to move to adjacent spaces. So you could say, okay, well, I'll send this guy over here. I'll send these 2 over here. And then and then you can say, well, because I'm moving, I'm going to move again. Also, because we've now moved, you can see that we've now changed the balance of power here in Monument City. It's now 3-2, and there's nobody in Excalibur Command Center. So we would just shuffle this marker over here to show the change in the change in control. Control is fluid. It's not sticky. The marker is really just there as a reminder, as a quick reminder as to who's actually in control of what. But so if they say, okay, I'm going to move Excalibur Command Center first, and then, I'm going to move New Macross. I'll move 1 over here. Let's move these guys down here. This will give New Macross control to the AUL, but you're like, whatever. I'm going to then select the Northwest Quadrant, and then you're going to take these units and move a bulk into New Portland, taking control, and also 1 into the Forest Preserve, giving you control there. Right? So again, when you select a territory, you unlock the potential for all of those units to move, though they don't have to. Like, he could have left somebody behind in New Macross, for instance. It would not be enough to take control, but there's nothing preventing you from doing so. Okay. And again, it's just you can take that over and over and over again. All right, so the next action that I want to talk about is recruiting. For the way that the AUL recruits is that in any territory that they control, they're able to take a piece from out of play and put it into that territory. So one word about out of play. You'll notice that there's a bunch of tokens that are sitting on the table. These are all considered out of play. There is a hard unit cap for each of the factions, and if they ever hit that unit cap, i.e., if all of their pieces are off the table, then there's no more units to recruit. However, if a unit gets destroyed either due to card effects or through combat, the unit will come off and back onto the table, which is essentially out of play, and then you can recruit them, or you can bring them back onto the board through other means. So the AUL recruits from off the board straight into any territory they control. Meanwhile, the way that the RDF recruits is that in a city that they control, they turn AUL partisans into military mecha. So they are recruiting the AUL straight into the RDF military. Or the RDF is able to take 2 military mecha and they're able to convert them into 1 Veritech fighter. Now, for the RDF, these Veritechs are very crucial to your strategy because, again, what you're trying to do is make these Zentradi civilians content. And the way you do that is by having, your key component in doing that is having these Veritech fighters. Rick Hunter also counts as a Veritech fighter. So, so you're going to, at some point, want to get more than just the 2 that you start with in order to help, further your ends. Right. So that's that. The REF, we won't have to talk about that, but for the Zentradi Rebellion, when you recruit, you will need to, in a territory that you control, you can take an REF bot, and you can convert it, and you're able to convert it into an overt mecha on your side. So you're basically stealing from their people. The RDF steals from the AUL. The Zentradi Rebellion steals from the REF. It's a fun little circle of life. Though, to be fair, though, for the Zentradi Rebellion, most of your troop strength is going to come from converting these civilians more so than taking from the REF bots.
Okay.
Yeah. Which actually leads us into a very interesting discussion, because as you can see, for these Zentradi soldiers, they have 2 sides. They have an overt side and a covert side. And the what side they're on matters a lot, because while the Zentradi Rebellion is able to attack everybody, all the other 3 factions, the only time anybody is able to attack the Zentradi Rebellion is when their units are on the overt side.
Sure.
And units can get to their overt side via a few things. There are card effects that will do it. The RDF has an action called the flip action, which allows them to flip over units onto their overt side. Zentradi Rebellion, you also have a flip action, but it's to flip them back to their covert side. But the main way that they flip over to their overt side is if a covert unit attacks. And the way that the Zentradi Rebellion attacks is they attack on a unit-by-unit basis. So if they have a force of people here in Granite City, they would say, okay, well, I'm going to, let's just say I attack with the 3. You attack 1 on here, say, okay, well, that's going to destroy him. And then the other 2 are going to attack the AUL. Now, in any type of attack, the defender always gets to choose what pieces are removed. And as you just saw with an attack, attacks are that simple. There's no dice roll. There's no, there's no dice. There's no, there's no card flipping. It's just, I have the units. I have the protoculture. I'm going to take the action when I take command, and I am now attacking you. And units are going to be taken off the board. Meanwhile, so because they attack unit by unit, they say, okay, well, 1 unit's attacking the RDF, so that unit will be removed. And then the other 2 units are going to attack the AUL. The AUL has a choice of which units to take off the board. And the thing about these hero tokens is that sometimes you might want to have your hero token taken off the board. Why? Because they have plot armor, and they will come back at the end of the round. The other guys, you have to pay for to bring them back. So sometimes you might want to just take the sometimes you might want to take the hero piece off in order to save yourself a little bit of protoculture, because at the end of the round, she's just going to come right back to Granite City. Can't keep Minmay down, right? So meanwhile, that is how the Zentradi Rebellion attacks. And it's also worthwhile to know that Chiron also has a covert and overt side. He has a separate piece on his board that keeps track of this, but his covert-overt works a little differently. Chiron is overt if he's in a territory where either he's by himself, and thus he is overt, or he's in a territory where there are only overt Zentradi units with him. If there is at least 1 covert Zentradi unit, Chiron will also be covert. And that's including if Chiron attacks. And when Chiron attacks, he's able to destroy 2 units. So Chiron by himself would be able to take these out. And because there's still a covert unit in the territory, Chiron will remain covert and thus safe from attacks. Because for the Zentradi Rebellion, Chiron really is your most important piece, and you do not want to... you don't want anything bad to happen to him, because that can really derail your plans.
Okay.
Meanwhile, for the other factions, for the RDF and the AUL, they attack on a territory-by-territory basis. So again, much like the movement, they are more territory-based. And when they attack, they will select a territory, and they will be able to attack in that territory. For the RDF, any military mecha will be able to destroy 1 unit, while the Veritech Fighter and Rick Hunter will be able to take 2 units off the board. They do not have a backside. They're just, that is what they do. The only catch is that the RDF is only able to attack overt Zentradi warriors, because they're the good guys. They don't attack the civilians. They won't attack little old me over at the AUL. The only people that can attack the AUL is the Zentradi Rebellion. And you would never do that, right? Because I'm your half ally. Right? Yeah, no, you'd never attack me.
No.
But if you want to win, you probably should at some point. And the same goes with the REF. The REF, I say that they are the boys in blue. Their battle pods do not attack at all. The only thing of theirs that does attack is the flagship, which coincidentally cannot be attacked because it's flying around up there. Can't attack it. But it will attack, and because we're playing with the bot, it's going to cheat a little bit. And if that ship ever gets into a territory with Zentradi units, well, it's just gonna take them off. Jeez. It's just gonna wipe them out. Yeah, a little bit, but you'll see. It's not that bad. But you'll see it's not that bad. So that is how you attack. That is flip. So now we need to talk about influence. Now for you two, the influence action is the most important action because that is how you win the game. So first, in order to take your influence action, you need to have control in a territory. And this is this is true for both of you. For the Zentradi Rebellion, they also not only need to have control of the territory, but they also need to have Chiron there, which is why Chiron is so important. Because as long as you have Chiron in that territory, you are able, and you control it, you're able to take the influence action. And again, influence is repeatable. So for the Zentradi Rebellion, every protoculture they spend is able to move 1 unit, 1 civilian, 1 spot to the right. So if we had this situation in Granite City, and this ship didn't destroy anybody, for Chiron, they can take off these 2 civilians with 1, 2, 3 protoculture. 3 protoculture, they come off the board, they get 2 units into their hideout, and they gain 2 points towards their victory over here on our victory point board. So we have this little board over here that just keeps track of where things are, so you can see how people are progressing towards their goals. And because a lot of this stuff is based off control, and control is not sticky and very fluid, this has the tendency to change, to be moving around a lot. So again, it's more of like a reference. It's more like a reference. Okay. Meanwhile, for the RDF, they have a slightly different setup of things. So for the RDF to convert units, what they need is in a territory, they need to either have Rick Hunter and a military mecha, they need to have Rick Hunter or a REF battle pod, they need to have a combination of these units, right? They need to have a Veritech fighter and a battle pod, or a Veritech fighter and a military mecha. So any combination of these four minimum in a territory that they control, they're able to take the influence action to shift Zentradi civilians to the left. And for every civilian sitting on the leftmost side of the track, that is considered a point for the RDF. And of course, the thing with this is that once a unit is on the left, furthest to the left, it can't go further to the left. So they're always vulnerable to be made more upset, but for every unit there, they get a point. And when you look at this board, you'll see that the cities contain at least 2, whereas the wilderness contains 1, and 1 civilian per, whereas up here in the major cities of Monument City and New Macross, you have 4 Zentradi civilians hanging out in New Macross, and you have 3 hanging out in Monument City. So this is your more highly populated centers that you can fight for the hearts and minds of these civilians. Does that make sense as to how the influence action works?
Yes.
For both of you? Okay. Mm-hmm. I'll just say that as the AUL, I have an awesome influence action. I have the best influence action in the game, even though it doesn't win me. The game. I get to hold a concert with Lin Min-Mei. She is a pop star. Lin Min-Mei is the most famous person on the earth at this moment in time, and she will hold a concert. And for every AUL partisan in that space, the AUL will either be able to shift 1 Zentradi civilian up or down the track, or the AUL will just gain a protoculture from proceeds from the concert. So the AUL I can do that, so I can potentially gain more income from doing that action than the action that we all have, which is called the income action. One of the actions everybody has is called the income action. You just, in order to see, that is a way of gaining protoculture. You count up the number of territories that are in your... So you just to see how many territories that are under your faction's side's control, and you will gain protoculture for it. Okay, so that's how all the actions work. I know we want to try to dive right into it. That's as much as you need to know to play. The only things that I'll note is that at the end of the round, everybody will take their income action. So at the end of the round, you're going to get more income as long as you have territories. Again, Zentradi and the REF, you get to take an extra influence action at the end of the round. So if you're the last one to go in the round and you say, I really want to take my influence action, but I really want to do something else, well, do something else because you're going to get to take the influence action for free in like 3 minutes, right? The RDF and AUL get to recruit, and as I said, heroes come back onto the board. Special event cards get thrown out, get put into people's hands, and we start up the next round right away. There is a victory check at the first thing we do, of course, is we check for victory, but we don't check for victory in the first round. What's one thing that I should note when we talk about victory is that let's say we had this situation where you get to the end of the round and the RDF has 5 of the content civilians, but the AUL has 6 cities underneath their control. Because I didn't mention the fact that the AUL can build more cities. There are only 5 cities on the board, and they need at least 5 to win, but that's really difficult. Their special action, one of their special actions is the build action that allows them to take a city tile token and put it on the board as long as they can meet the cost requirements. The thing about city tokens is that if the AUL controls the territory with a city token, they will gain 1 point for controlling that city token on top of. So if I control New Detroit City, I get 1 point for controlling New Detroit and 1 point for controlling the city token. The city token exerts influence. The city token exerts influence for the AUL, and the city tokens, once built, cannot be destroyed, but they can be built anywhere. So I could build one. If I build one in the forest preserve, it now turns the forest preserve into a city. for practical purposes of this game, and that's especially a key thing for the RDF, because a lot of your abilities key off the fact that you need to control cities. And so as these city tokens get built, they become other potential bases of operation for you to function. The only thing I didn't cover is how the protoculture tokens work, which is basically at the end of the round after the victory check, whoever has whichever faction has like the most units hanging around in the same space as the protoculture token will gain an additional 3 protoculture on top of everything else. And you have to have like the most. So in this situation, because there's 2 REF battle pods to 1, the factional stuff kind of breaks down when it comes to counting these. The REF will get that token. However, if it was a tie, or if a protoculture token is left alone, it automatically goes to the RDF. These zones and these tokens are assumed to be under RDF control unless proven otherwise. Okay. All right. So that's a little run through of all the rules. I'm going to reset the board and get things going here. Do you guys have any questions while I, reset this thing?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think it seems relatively clear to me.
All right, very good. So let's just kind of get this rolling. Why don't I shuffle the cards? And so as a bit of an aside, while I do this, the deck, the event deck is split into 2 halves. So there are cards that are on top that everyone gets dealt, and then there are cards on the bottom that are more powerful. There are more cards that are more powerful on the bottom, and those, of course, come out over the course of the game. Right. And because it's your first time looking at these things, you could take a moment to take a look at these cards. And
how do I zoom in on a card out of my hand?
It's the if you hold down the Alt key or
there we go. Yeah.
Apple, it will make it bigger, and then if you use your scroll wheel, you can make it even bigger on your screen.
Okay.
So you have a way of being able to look at those. And as we talk about it, of course, just like at the beginning of the series, everything seems to be going fine for the RDF. The RDF gets to make the first move, unaware of all the chaos that's about to happen behind them. So the question is, would you like to make a card trade?
So is there trading with the bot player?
No,
Okay.
There's no trading with the bot, even though they have a hand. Oh, right, and I should probably set that up. But there's no trading with the bot, but they will play an event card every round.
Got it.
Randomly from their hand.
Well, I will say right off the bat, I don't have any cards for my faction, which of course makes it an interesting choice because they're all like good for the other guys.
Also good for you though too, because you get the 2 basic actions.
Yeah.
It's sure. But to the point of and that's where it's like, do I want? Okay, so actually, yeah, okay. So if I did this, since the blue guys aren't the worst guys in the world, right? Like,
right. So what's going to happen here is, because it's the REF's card, the REF is still going to decide what to do there. The bot always ignores the black box action, so we don't worry about that. What this is saying is that you're gonna, if you go through with this, I'll just kind of game this out a little bit. So if you go through with this, the AUL will go next because of the reaction column. Then whenever the bot has to make a decision about where to do things, they have two decks. They have a what we call a drop deck, which is what they do when they take their turn. But if they have to make any location decisions, we have this territory deck. And what we're going to do is we're just going to flip over cards from this. There's one of each territory in here. They're just going to flip this over until they find a territory that has AUL units, and they're going to convert those. So you feel good about continuing on that with this path?
Let's go for it.
Okay.
Unless you're going to tell me it's the stupidest thing ever, but
no, not at all. Because look what happened. So they chose New Detroit City. So what's funny, so the thing about the bot is that we like to affectionately call this guy the bot drunk Britai, because sometimes he does his job, sometimes he doesn't, sometimes he shoots himself, sometimes he hurts others. So here he picked New Detroit City, which is actually really good, because we're going to take 2 AUL out of New Detroit, and we're going to put 2 battle pods in and flipping the territory over to the RDF.
Oh, that was granite.
That's New Detroit. You're right.
But that was the same. Yeah. I think the same. Yeah.
Same deal.
No, it's the same result, but
yeah, perfect. Go Blue Dudes.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what I wanted. Exactly like I thought would happen.
So New Detroit City falls underneath the RDF, and what that means is that the AUL drops down 1 point, and the REF bot goes up 1 point. But so now that's the card. The card has been resolved, and now you get to take command. So now you get to select 2 different actions off of your faction board. And so what you're going to do is you're going to select one first. You're going to run through it because it may be repeatable and you may want to do it several times. And then you will then stop doing that first action, move on to a second action, and do that. So what do you feel like doing? Because you've played another faction's event card, you have the entire board open to you. You don't have to do a normal action and then a special action. You can do 2 normal actions, 2 special actions. You can take them in any order you want.
Yeah, I guess you hyped up the fighter guys, so I'm trying to see if I can take advantage of. Yeah, right. Okay. So in this case, like, okay, I'm looking at this New Portland City. If I wanted to flip these guys over, then I lose control or.
Well, so first of all, you would need control. So your recruitment action,
yes,
your recruitment action needs to be in a city you control. So if this is a city, you just don't control it yet. So you would have to get more units into the city first before doing that. But yeah, if you say, because you own New Macross, right? Sure. You control New Macross.
Yep.
Let's say you converted these 2 into 1. If you converted these 2 into 1, then after doing that, the city would become uncontrolled and you wouldn't be able to continue doing recruit actions in that location because it would no longer be under your control.
Okay. Got it.
Because it's fluid.
Well, yep. I'm going to go ahead and instead do the recruit over here at the Excalibur Command Center and turn these 2 into a fighter. And then I don't. Okay. Is that fine?
That's fine.
So then I get to just take those into my supply and put out a fighter?
Actually, no, because Excalibur Command Center is not a city. It's not a city, so you wouldn't be able to do that there.
I should know better. It's not round. I just saw the buildings I saw the buildings in the back.
No, you saw them. It's a command base. It's a command base, but it's not a large enough hub to have them going to be able to do that. Unfortunately.
Okay, so yeah, now I'm overanalyzing, I think, here a little bit, but well,
you're on the right track. It's just if
I'll go ahead.
I'll
do the recruit on this one. I know I sacrifice the control of the city, but I get it. I get a fighter
Okay.
dude, and then I have to spend the 3 resources. Right?
Right.
1, 2, 3. Okay, and that was my first action, right?
So recruitment is repeatable. So you could do it again, though you're now in a position where you actually can't do it again.
Yeah, because
Um,
I don't have any cities that I control currently.
right, and that has enough units in it to do anything.
So
I
then,
mean, the REF just kind of took these here, and yeah.
all right. Well, in that case, I will do a maybe a move because I don't
Mhm.
I don't have that in a blank territory. I don't think I can do influence. Right? I can't do influence, right? Yeah.
Not now, right? You'll need to at least gain control of.
Okay.
Well, you could influence here in Excalibur. That's the only place because you do control it. You have the Veritech and you have a military mecha. You can do an influence there.
And by doing that, I get my first content citizen then, or
That will technically be your third because you
okay.
have one here in New Macross and one here in New
Okay.
Portland already at the beginning of the game.
Okay. So I'm gonna do that. That'll be my next action. Is I'm going to do the influence and shift this
Yeah.
citizen to the left, and that's 3 resources, right?
Right. And we're just going to mark you up to have your third content civilian.
Perfect. Okay.
All right. So you end your turn by drawing a card into your hand
From this.
from the draw deck. Yeah, you just
Okay.
draw the top card.
Okay.
Okay. So then, let's see here. Does the Zentradi, do you have any cards you might want to trade with me?
Putting a lot of pressure on me.
Because I definitely have some cards that I'd like to give you. But I do have a card I'd like to give you. And like I would like, it'd be nice if you were to be able to play that card. You can, so if you alt shift over a card that's face down, you'll get to see the other side of it. So I'm
Okay.
like it's not really any good for me, but I'd be happy if you were to play it. Do you have any cards that you'd want me to play right now? I mean, I have a backup. I'm willing. I'm just as easily able to stash a card for you if you don't want it in your hand anymore.
I don't know. I don't know what's good or bad. So
Right, and I know so because this is your first time playing, every card has a unique action associated with it, and each card is either wide ranging or somewhat situational. So I get that, the first time you play through it, it's like wow, there's a lot of stuff here, but again, the deck of cards itself is only about 30 some cards. So once you play this game like twice, you'll have seen everything, and so you'll be able to really have a good idea about what's in the deck. But again, even though you've seen everything, at the most, only half the cards are ever going to get played. So every game is going to have a different cadence of card play, depending on who controls what cards, what players are willing to trade for which cards. It's always fun to see. And now we have the bot, so it's going to be fun to see what they decide to throw out as we go through this. But
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I don't have any cards in your faction, so
No, I don't want cards in my faction. I'm giving you a card
that's
in
why
my
you're
faction.
ditching. Yeah,
I want
that's
other.
true.
Yeah, I want other cards. Is there any card in your faction that you want to see out?
Yes.
All right.
How do I hide it on the table for you to see?
Oh, well, you can just flip it over. So if you hit the F key, that'll flip it over, and then you can move it out onto the table. And I'll just move that off to the side.
Oh, that's a good point. Do
Or,
the trades have to be public?
well, players have to know that a trade was made.
Okay.
I don't have to we don't have to say like,
I don't have to know
okay,
a card. Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to know. Like, I'll be happy to play that right now if you want me to.
It's a good card for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good card
I'll
for you.
trade you. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I'll take that. You know what? I won't even put it in my hand. We'll just slide it right onto play. Okay. So what I played here is Attack on Excalibur.
Ooh.
So we look at the reaction column. We see that the RAF will go next, and the Zentradi Rebellion will go last. Now, what happens here is because I played this card, they get to place 3 out of play onto the Excalibur Command Center, which is here. So that is going to make the Excalibur uncontrolled, and this is going to come from their out of play section. So you can just move 3 out of there onto the board. And yeah. Boop. Very nice. Okay, so that makes that territory uncontrolled. Now, for the Zentradi Rebellion, you have the option of taking the black box action, which is a recruit action, which there's no battle pods on the board in a territory you control. So, unfortunately, you can't take the recruit action. But that finishes the event card, and now I get to take my turn. So, kind of made that a little difficult. Let's see here. What I want to do is absolutely want to do that. And I want to do that. And I want to do that. Too many things. Too many things to do. Okay, so for my first action, I'm going to take the move action. And I'm going to have... So for my move action, I'm going to select Granite City. I'm going to move to the Forest Preserve, which is going to give that to you.
Yay.
Which is going to give that to them, but also give this to me. That's going to cost me a protoculture to do so. And then, because I'm actually doing all right elsewhere, so then I'm just going to take my next action. I'm going to take the build action. So so that costs me 2 protoculture and also 2 units off the board. But I get to put down the city token. That gives me a point. So that's 1, 2. So that's just 2 cities underneath my command because you did that. Because I did that. Right. So I have 2 cities under my command. I've turned the Forest Preserve into that. And that's going to be my 2 actions ending my turn. And I'm going to draw a card into my hand. All right. So now the bot is going to go. So the way the bot works is they also have a hand of cards. And they're going to randomly pick one and play it. Oh, yay. Skull Squadron. Okay, so the bot has picked Skull Squadron. So,
yay, is that a good thing? Well, it's got my faction on it, so...
Yeah, it can be really, really good, or it can be really, really bad, depending on... It's a very variable card. This should be some chaotic fun right now. So what you're going to do is So this is Skull Squadron. You're going to take all of your units, and you're going to move it to 1 territory. Then in that territory... that you move them to, all Zentradi units are going to be flipped over to their overt side, and then you have the option of making an attack action.
Oh no.
Okay, so if do I have to move all my units?
Yes. So you do have to. So you are going to select 1 territory, and the territory doesn't have to have Zentradi in it. You could move them anywhere, but you're going to pick 1 territory, and everybody's going to come to that point.
Well,
and
you have to move your main dude too.
And the main dude. That's right.
What you gonna do, Nick?
I'm gonna blow up your damn covert guys that you
Of course
just...
you would.
All right.
Hey, I didn't start the fire.
The obvious choice.
All right, and that just gives me control. All right, thank you.
Well, I mean, like,
Thank you,
that was kind of the negative. Yeah, now I see what you're saying. That's why you didn't necessarily say that was a great card for me, because it gives.
And Austin won the game.
Yeah.
No. So nobody's able to win in the first round.
Yeah.
Right.
So now all of these units flip over to their overt side. And now you may, if you wish, make an attack action.
Yeah.
I don't know, you're outnumbered, Nick.
Yeah, I will definitely do some attacking. So it looks like I have more than enough to take them out.
Definitely so. But so I just pulled them off. That still cost you 3 protoculture to make the attack.
So now
does he lose any units or no?
Yeah, is it retaliation from him, or do I get to?
Nope. He will have to retaliate on his turn.
Okay. Yeah. So attacking is not simultaneous. Like it's always.
Right. It's always your move. You initiate the attack. And what's really funny is that when you watch the show, that's more or less how battles work out. It's just like, we have the initiative, so we're just killing everything. And then when the enemy attacks, it's like, oh no, they're killing everything.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
It's kind of cute that it's kind of funny that way. But yeah. So that
wasn't very funny.
I was gonna say though that seemed kind of excessive, but whatever. Like I didn't have a choice. I didn't make that decision. At least I can say I didn't make that decision. I was.
That's true. I believe you.
But you still made the decision as to where to go.
Yeah, but
that's something.
Okay, we'll leave it like it was. But in your opinion, was there a better option? Do you think? Should I have gone for? I'm starting to think cities are important.
Yeah, cities are important. Like the only downside of this play is that you do get an influence at the end of the round, and you've just gone to a place that you've already influenced. So one thing that you could have done was gone to some place like here or even here, like a city that you could take control of, that you could also then move a bunch of civilians over. But that's okay. It's a learning game.
It's a learning game.
Everybody's learning. Okay, so now you actually get to see how the bot takes its turn, right? So the way that the RAF flagship works is that their faction board represents all of the battle pods that are on the flagship. So there's 2 sides to their board. There's an assembly side and a constructed side. Assembly is just basically all of those busted mechs from the first Robotech war that are essentially out of commission. Anything on the constructed side are mechs that are able to be dropped out from the ship itself. So what the bot does on their turn is we shuffle their drop card, we flip it over, and it tells us how many. Well, we always move 5 bots over to the constructed side, but we also get to see how many territories and how many bots will be placed in those territories. So here it says, they're going to go to 3 territories. So we shuffle their territory side, we pull 3 down, and we say like, okay, they're going to drop. So now what's happening here is this flagship is flying around. They fly over to the reclamation sector, and they drop 2, gaining control of the reclamation sector. They fly on down to Granite City. They drop 2 in Granite City, taking control of Granite City. Wow, Britai is really on point today.
He's giving me control.
And then he's going to fly up to New Macross City and drop the 5th one, basically taking control away from making it uncontrolled. Oh, Britai, you're hurting me. And then if this location had any Zentradi in it, because again, the bot cheats, they would flip over all of the Zentradi to their overt side and destroy them all. But that is not what happened here. So there we go. And that is the bot's turn. They end their turn by taking a card into their hand. And now it is the Zentradi Rebellion's turn.
All right. About dang time. All right, let's see here.
You can play a card of my faction if you want. I don't mind.
You think so? After what you did to me?
I do have one of his cards that I could trade to you, so you could play it if you wanted.
I'm not going to trust either one of you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is add 5 from out of play to the assembly pool. So basically, these units go from out of play, and they get added to the assembly side. Now, this is a good thing for the Zentradi Rebellion to do, because there's a bunch of cards that allow the REF to take units from out of play and get them onto the board, like We Are the Same. And so by moving them from out of play onto the assembly, onto their board, they now can't do those things in the future. So less of a chance to muck things up. And again, the bot does not work on the black box action. So as in Zentradi Rebellion, you can take 2 different actions and you have off your board, and you have unlocked your special actions.
Perfect. Okay, so I had a plan, and then Nick killed everything, and now I don't have a plan. So having said that, oh man. Okay, so recruit. So I'd only be able to recruit in a territory with that. My brother's keyboard is really clicky. Sorry about that.
Well, I have a mechanical keyboard as well.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay, so I think I do want to recruit. Which I can over in the wastelands.
So you recruit by replacing the REF's battle with yours. So there's actually no place on this board, because here you don't control the territory, but if you did control the territory, you would be able to recruit these 2 to your side. Same thing if you end up taking control of, say, New Macross or Granite City or New Detroit, you would be able to then convert those battle pods over to your side. But you have to get control of it first.
I'm going to do some movement then. We are going to move these 2 from the wastelands actually onto my board and then over to reclamation sector. So it's 2.
4. No, 4.
2 cop.
1, 2. So that's 4 to do
that.
I'm
sorry.
Yeah.
2 for each.
It's for each. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Oop. Onto the 11 here.
And then he takes control.
Take control there, which then.
And then, would you like to do any more movement? Because movement is repeatable, and all of your guys. And again, I'll repeat, Chiron is very important. You'll probably, while moving, want to get him onto the board while you can.
Oh yeah.
And of course, your other units can move as well, but that's how much and how few you want to do is up to you. But I would highly recommend getting Chiron onto the board, because you'll want to use it.
And that's 1 more movement point, and I'm trying to remember where he needs to be here. That's how I shift. Okay. Yep.
You could start shifting. You could take that dude, basically.
I know, but I wanted to shift more than just 1 dude at a time. But
because he gets to take the influence action for free at the end of the round, and there's no one going after him, Chiron's safe. So he can feel free to do anything else he wants right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't know if I want to do any more movement, though. Let me think. Okay, so moving on to the next action. Now I can recruit. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Recruit into the reclamation sector. And what's the cost of that? 1 per replace. Okay.
Yeah.
So I could spend 2 to replace both of those. Okay.
Yep.
So I'll go ahead and do that.
So we'll take those off board. You'll put 2 units on. And they do come in on their overt side. So.
Okay, do they come from autoplay?
Yeah, they come from autoplay. I'll just kind of sneak them on here.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Ooh.
Oh, shoot. And how do I flip them back again? Oh, with the flip. Okay.
So with the flip action, however, they will flip over. There is a point in the end of round. I didn't talk about it, but there's a point in the end of round where all overt units come back to the hideout and they get flipped back over to their covert side. So
cool. Okay.
you don't. So you because it's the end of the round, you don't have to worry about leaving them hanging out in the wind as it.
Okay. And that's it then. Yep.
Okay, so you can draw your card. And so, all right, so we've hit the end of the round. So we'll just walk through how this goes pretty quickly here. All right, the first thing we do is we do a victory check. It's the first round, so we skip that. We move straight on into income and horticulture. So the way I like to do this is just split it up between gaining income and gaining horticulture. So you look at the amount of territories under your control. So I think the RDF, you control 4, right? 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4. So the RDF is going to gain 8 horticulture. So you can up that by 8.
What?
And then
it's 2 per.
Yeah, it's 2 per territory. Whereas both the Zentradi Rebellion and I and the AUL 1, 2, 3, 4
4 as well.
Will also gain 4. So we each gain 4 of that. Then we take a look at the horticulture tokens, and because nobody moved into the horticulture zone, the spaces with the horticulture tokens, all of this horticulture is going to go to the RDF. So the RDF just gained an additional 9 horticulture.
9? Oh wow, I'm rich. I'm like Scrooge McDuck in my protoculture, just diving into a big pile of protoculture.
and then at this point, if any of these tokens had been moved, because there's some card effects that will move them, they will come back to their zones because like more you're using them, and then more are being produced. So then the next thing we do is the Zentradi Rebellion and the RDF get to take their influence action. This can happen simultaneously, but if there's a question, it's just right here on the board that the Zentradi Rebellion would go first and followed by the RDF. But the RDF has already gotten themselves to a point where they can't influence. So the question is, do you want to take the influence action?
I definitely would. Yes. So it would be 2 of them here, right?
Great. That costs you 2. This comes off the board. That scores you a point, and then you get another covert unit. Yeah, I've just moved it over. And then I've just added 1 unit here to your hideout. Comes in on the covert side. Okay. All right, so now here's the next thing. So now every Chiron and every overt unit retreats back to the hideout, and they get flipped back over to their covert side. So these 3 units plus Chiron all fly back to the hideout and get flipped over. And now here's the fun part. So at this point, the RDF also needs to return to refuel and resupply.
Oh.
Now, when the RDF does this, they can only go back to cities under their control or New Macross City, no matter who controls it, because they can always move there. So now you get to, as the RDF, choose where all of these units go, and you can split them up however you want for free between New Macross City, Granite City, and New Detroit City. So, but it's just that nothing will remain in Excalibur.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
And you get to choose them. Yeah. It's actually probably more than fine.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It actually makes me want to watch the show now.
I know, right? Like I haven't really watched Robotech before, but now it's making me want to.
This period, I will say that this period of time, this part of the
Mimi.
I was just right there. I was right there.
Oh, sorry.
She was right here. Yeah. Good. So yeah, what's interesting about this point of time is that the Reconstruction era is a specific 9 episodes of the show right at the end of the first season. So most of the time, it's a very 2-sided conflict. It's humans on one side and Zentradi on the other, and the lines are very clear-cut. But once you get to this part of the show, these 9 episodes, they effectively are tying up all the loose ends of the rest of the season. But it also gets very, as you can see here, it gets very political. It gets very complex. It gets differing factions are happening during this time, and it creates it definitely creates some very interesting possibilities for a board game. Okay,
Yeah.
so that just happened. So now the AUL and the REF get to take the recruit action. I am definitely going to take the recruit action. I need to take, let's do two, one, two, three. So I'll do 1, 2, 3. I'm going to recruit 3. I'll definitely get one up over here. Let's get another one over here in the forest preserve. And yeah, let's get 2 up in the forest preserve. Okay, so that's that. Then the next thing is that if any unit had been taken off the board due to combat, they get returned now. The next thing that happens is that, well, because it's the bot doesn't get their special card, but you do. So that goes into your hand. And now we just clear off everything and we get set up for round 2. And this little timeline down here tells you who's going to go next. It's already predetermined who begins each of the rounds. The REF will begin round 2. And now we're set up for round 2. I understand that, we may be a little short on time. So if we want to wrap it up, if you guys have any questions for me, now's a perfect time to do so. Because I don't know, I look at this board and it's like I'm a little concerned that the RDF has so much protoculture, but also things are pretty open now. This game could really go any which way. And if the bot Chiron keeps on point as it did, they might be able to sway things over to their side faster than you think, because there's a lot of empty spaces on this board that they can take advantage of. I will say,
it does seem like the Zentradi Rebellion is a little difficult to play. I don't know what your experience is from it, but I feel like 11 is a lot. Yeah, or maybe I guess once you get good at it.
I was gonna say, you have a ways to go on.
A little ways to go.
Yeah. Yeah,
unless keep charging forward and you guys are a little more swingy with your victory.
But I was gonna say my problem is it's very difficult. I got lucky with in a way I got lucky with how that first round played out in terms of moving a bunch out. Well, no, I guess it wouldn't matter but if I want to move a guy, I can't just move a single guy one space and pay 1 like you can. I have to go by area. Right. So if I have one guy in an area,
your money bags talking over there.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's probably what. Well, you maybe Austin can comment on this. Leaving me these fabrication zones is maybe not a good idea.
Right.
Yeah, I would on my turn. I was definitely going to be moving into these regions and trying to take some of these back. Because we did kind of just give that to you. Right away, but I think it's always instructive to realize what they do when you're like, oh, we do our income, and it's like, oh, we each get 4 and you get 8, and then because we left the protoculture tokens alone, you get an additional 9, and it's like, oh, okay, because at the beginning, during rules explanation, you say these tokens are worth 3 protoculture each, and you're like, whatever, not a big deal, and then you see the cumulative effects, and you're like, oh, okay. They're worth at least 3 territories in their own right. Got it. Okay.
Are there more difficult factions to play, or easier, more beginner-friendly factions?
I mean, there is I do feel like there is a reason that the REF turned in what is the bot, is because it's not that they're easier to play. When you play them, you still have to worry. You have to watch your protoculture intake. You have to worry about your protoculture intake. You have to still be very mindful of what everybody else is doing. But your goal is kind of like one of the simplest, right? You're just trying to spread and take as much territory as possible. So I do like to put people who might feel a little uncomfortable as the REF and just be like, just go, just get territories. That's all you got to worry about, right?
Yep.
Whereas it is true that the thing with the Zentradi Rebellion is that they are playing the long game. So they have to not only work towards their 11, which they can get, because, you could have jumped up into New Macross and have gotten 4 points in 1 influence, right? Instead of getting the 1, you could have gotten the 4 if you were.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right? So, you're not really... So you're not... It's not like you're behind or anything. It's just you do have options. But the hard thing about it is not so much getting the 11, it's keeping the game going long enough to get the 11.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Because you're playing that long game, you have to make sure all the other players are in check. Right. And and as the Party Rebellion, it's very easy to be like, oh, I don't want to expose myself, because if I expose myself, I'm going to be up for counterattack. But if the Zentradi Rebellion doesn't play an active role in how the game shapes out, they're going to find one of the other factions is going to get to victory faster. And they're going to be like, I wasn't able to. I mean, when I play the Zentradi Rebellion, I end up going a little bit too aggressive in my attacks, and I end up like not having enough protoculture to get those final civilians off the board. I'm like, oh, I can win. And then I'm like, no, I'm broke.
Yeah,
I spent too much attacking other folks. So,
Very interesting faction, though. I mean, so far I can definitely see how this would play out.
I think it's interesting too, the balance in terms of I do make more money, but like for me, from my victory objective is getting the guys to the left, but to move one guy to the left once, it's 3 resources, where for you to move one guy to the right, it's just 1 resource. So and then once it's taken off, it's gone. Like I don't, I just can only move a guy to the left, but I can't take it off the board, where for your faction, once it's off the board, I can't get I
guess my only handcuff is that I need Chiron in that zone.
That's true. Chiron, yeah, and there's a lot. It's layer after layer of layer. I was gonna say I'm appreciating these blue guys, because like at first I'm like, oh, the blue guys are good because they like help me capture territories. But then for you can turn the blue guys into your side, which then makes them kind of like ticking time bombs for me, because it's like if I'm not careful and just put a bunch of blue guys out, it's like giving you in a way enemy, an army per se, which
I kind of like that dynamic with them, it being a 3-player game and them being controlled by a bot. Honestly, having them almost be like pawns in a bigger picture, almost. And I can see how that would play out differently in a 4-player game too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate the bots. The bot mechanic so far from what we've played was very straightforward.
Oh, way more streamlined than
that all bridges burning. Yeah,
all bridges burning we just played. That was a little bit more going on with that. So
and with this bot, I'll just say that like they have 10 different cards, so the order and how many at once is a little. There's always that unpredictability as to what exactly they're going to do and where they're going to go. So you never quite know, even though there's a pretty good shakeout of things, which again is why we call him affectionately Drunk Britai, because again, like this game, he played very well. He did a very nice series of things that was very helpful. Sometimes he's not so helpful, but to your point about the converting people is very expensive for the RDF, and that is true. They are very expensive, which is why it is important to get those Veritech fighters down on the board, because what you're able to do is you're able to like split them up to a bunch of like disparate territories and move people over. Because if you put all your eggs in one basket, it's really easy for Chiron to get in there and like take them all back. But if you like in one move take like get a point over here, over there, then it's all because Chiron's only 1. You then kind of like force the rest of the table to like have to deal with you. And they really don't.
Well,
they really don't want to have to deal with you. They want to leave it to Chiron.
That's exactly what I tried to set myself up for the next turn. Is that I had this city, and this city with the prerequisite, forces to influence, and I therefore, like you were just saying, Cory wouldn't have been able. Maybe he could take up, neutralize one of these 3 cities, but for him to neutralize all 3 would be a challenge. But then that's what makes his mobile. I guess if he went before me and did a move, he can easily just from his hideout, poop, bunch of guys out there, take away my.
Yeah.
So I think that the balance for each faction is very interesting.
And that's why I was going to play, if it was looking like that, that's why I was going to play this card, which would have at least denied you the point over in New Portland City. It doesn't, it doesn't help everything, but it can be at least 1 point of denial right now. Oh, and I get to remove the Zentradi Warrior from there too. Oh, bonus. But it also gives you a move action, so you have a chance to respond after seeing what's going on. So like, there's a lot of different things here that that are able to shift the situation on the board.
And learning the cards in the deck is a big part of that too. But like you said, there's only 30 some cards to learn. So
yeah, I appreciate how overall streamlined the game is too. It's not overly intricate where it just becomes more of a brain burner than fun. So I feel like
the card play follows a lot of the coin system.
Yeah,
obviously the asymmetry of root. But yeah, you're pulling a lot of the fun things from both systems.
Exactly. So. It's like it's more streamlined version, which is why I can appreciate it, because like especially the bot, it's just like, oh man, this is so
much nicer.
Yeah, it just like makes me relax when you're like, okay, we just do this and then that's the bot's turn. Like,
and it's done. So yeah,
and it worked out like you said. Like I made sure maybe sometimes it's a little sporadic, but that's it served its purpose. It did something that affected all of our decision making, and anyway, so
and advances the game forward.
Yeah.
Does it play a 2-player or is it just 3 to 4?
It's 3 to 4 right now. Aaron and I, we have been working to create solo. We've been working to create bots for the other factions as well, along the same style, to keep it as easy as possible, and that would allow for two-player play. But we're still prototyping that. We're prototyping that. We're workshopping it. There's no time horizon for that. At this point, but it is something that we've been tinkering with.
Okay.
Is there a possibility of a 5th faction, or does this pretty much flesh out the Robotech theme?
I mean, what I always appreciate about Robotech is that the people who are fans of it treat it like a historical. They treat it as historically as All Bridges Burning, even though it's an anime from the 80s, right? This is not a property that has had multiple iterations or weird timeline breaks or revivals. People are very good about being like, no, this is what happened. This is the history. And so because this game is representing this point in time, there is, these are the 4 factions. This is how this played out. We've gotten, words from fans that are like, okay, do the invid next, and it's like, oh, yeah, we'll get there when we get there. We'll get there if we get there. We'll get there when we get there. That sort of thing. But that would be a completely different game, because that's a completely different season. It's different characters, different art, different all of that.
Oh, so. Sure. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, just to kind of summarize then the status of the game, you said that this was a Kickstarter that already completed and is about to ship, or is it going to go to Kickstarter soon?
So this will only went to pre-order. So this was a pre-order, and in fact, I'm glad you mentioned it. It is still up for pre-order right now. We're not going to take it off of pre-order until we actually have physical copies, which at this point they've been, my understanding is that they've been printed, but now it's in shipping chaos, and it's like, when is it going to get here? I don't know. I don't have that, but we're looking at getting physical copies here by the end of the year, which is when we'll take it off of pre-order and then move it into just selling.
Okay. And will it eventually be retail as well, or is it just direct from the publisher?
There is like we've been looking to get it into retail in different retail shops. It's not, this isn't a Walmart or a Target game. This is, the easiest way to get it would be by going to Strange Machine Games website and ordering it there, though we have had some orders of like other shops getting it. So I can't say go to your local game store to get it, but there will be physical copies floating out there in some stores.
So, but in short, available for pre-order online at
Yes.
SMG Games.
At Strange Machine Games.
Strange Machine Game, yeah.
And Strange Machine Games, yep. Yeah.
Great. Then I guess, yeah, any other promotion about this game or future things you're working on, Austin, that you want to share before we wrap things up here?
I mean, the only thing is I will be at Gen Con running demos of the game.
Nice.
So if you want to, you can find us. I don't have the table number, but I'm going to be there, and I'll be running demos all throughout Gen Con. So come find me, say hi, take a look.
Cool.
And I know Church, one of our other members of Talking Cardboard, he's actually going to Gen Con this year. He's able to get out there this year, and will be kind of representing us too, so I'll have him check it out.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent.
Great.
Cool.
Wow.
All right.
Well,
And all the normal, I guess I should also say all the normal things. We are on Twitter and Instagram at DRWICTZ. We have a website, we have a blog. As long as you type in WICTZ, you'll find us because we got that search engine optimization on point.
Nice.
Perfect.
Well, thanks so much, Austin, for the time and sharing this game with Cory and myself. It was definitely fun to learn, and look forward to hopefully trying out a physical copy of the game someday. And obviously, if those watching had any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section of this video once it's posted up. And with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I'm Nick from Talking Cardboard. Cory, I guess.
And I'm Cory, behind the scenes here.
And thanks for watching, and hope to see you all again soon. Thanks, guys.